just to start off the bat, last Friday was that meeting between the president and the president of Ukraine in the Oval Office. What were your just initial thoughts when that happened and the fallout from that?
I thought it was very unfortunate because of the deal that was getting ready to be signed. I think would have been a great step forward for the United States, but particularly Ukraine, as an investment in Ukraine's future that would be protected by the United States. So I think Zelensky he's been in a fog of war. Obviously, he's seen a lot of bad things, atrocities, his own people, 200,000 children kidnapped and indoctrinated. And so it's hard for him to walk into a situation and not be very passionate. I think his mistake may have been trying to relitigate the agreement and trying to add things into it, like a security agreement. And I don't really fault him for that, but it did derail it. Now, the good news is that President Zelensky just came out with a tweet today expressing regrets for what happened, talking about his support for the United States and thanking us for our support and also supporting President Trump. So I think you're going to hear tonight, at least I'm hopeful, President of the United States is going to talk about how now things are back on track. We're going to restart the negotiations and we're going to sign that mineral economic agreement. I think what President Zelensky did today was absolutely necessary. And I think hopefully victorious in getting this deal back on track.
Another key topic in the news today, right, is all those tariffs being announced on Mexico, Canada, China, with retailers, some of them saying they're going to have to increase prices. You have those other countries, at least two of them, saying they're going to put some retaliatory tariffs. Over this decade, Texans have felt their wallets hit pretty hard by inflation. I guess for our sake, where do you see the end game for these tariffs?
Yeah, good, great question. I chair the U.S. Mexico Interparliamentary Group. Mexico is our number one trading partner to Texas. There's a lot at stake here. Um, I would prefer tariffs being used to produce a desired behavior or policy impact. I think the president warned about these things. However, unfortunately, the president of Mexico did not concede or return to the policy of remain in Mexico that had worked so well in the prior administration, now this administration, in bringing the numbers down of illegals coming in to the country. In fact, since President Trump has come into office, there's been a 94% decrease in apprehensions. And that's what he promised, that's what he ran on, and that's what he's getting. So I hope that these tariffs will get the desired outcome, and that is we will work with you on remain in Mexico. We will work with your intelligence community and other assets that we have in Mexico to stop the inflow of fentanyls, of illegal aliens, and other dangerous actors that can come in. I've seen this work in the past. It worked last time he was in office with the then president of Mexico when he agreed to do remain in Mexico. I think that's really key here because without that policy change and without Mexico's cooperation, we won't be able to get that done.
What kind of concessions do you think the Canadians would need to make in order for you to say, okay, I think it's time for the president to lift or reduce some of these tariffs?
Well, again, I hope that it's temporary on Mexico, starting with that, because I do understand the economic impact that will have on Canada. Again, there's not as much of a threat from their border, although enough fentanyls came in to kill a pretty significant population here in the United States. I think on that one, he's looking for more of a parity, if you will, and the trade imbalance to balance the trade, which is very imbalanced currently. I think what's really working well, though, Adam, is the tariffs he's imposed on China. I mean, you've already seen Microsoft now reinvesting it back in the United States, $300 billion. TSMC is a product of My Chips Act, and I think the threat of tariffs that's brought TSMC back to invest $100 billion in the United States, and that's the kind of result that we want to see.
So I guess just talk about some of what you're seeing with President Trump early policy at that southern border. some things that you see that are encouraging and some things that maybe you'd like to see improved on?
Well, morale of Border Patrol is very high, at all-time high. It was not like that in the prior administration. As I mentioned, a 94% decrease in apprehensions really says it all. We have seen some cooperation from Mexico, almost 30 drug cartel members extradited to the United States. And I think that's all really going in the right direction. It was out of control for 4 years, and that what happened in those 4 years will be felt for the next decade. I know there's a lot talked about deportations, but what they're really enforcing are prior notice of removals under the Biden administration. And most of these are aggravated felons that never should have been let into the United States in the first place.
So another thing I wanted to touch on from the federal side, right, is Doge. It's something that a lot of people have been focusing on. Where do you see Doge going? How effective have you seen it being? And I know you might not know too much about this, but how about some of those layoffs that we've been seeing here in the Austin area?
Well, I think a lot of the complaints seem to be more the execution than the concept of, looking under the hood of the car, putting sunlight, best disinfectant. I mean, I think most people agree that the federal government can be more efficient, that there is fraud, waste, and abuse in some areas. And I think it's more like how they're executing it is the biggest thing. But I think, if we can reform the federal government using advanced technologies like AI, I'm all for that. Now, having said that, having been a federal employee in the Justice Department myself, I know there are protections on this, particularly when it comes to vested federal employees. And that is a matter that we're seeing now play out in the courts. And I know the courts will deal with those protection issues, constitutional issues that, the federal employees are not evil. I mean, they serve the country. They have a passion for that. But do I think we need some reform and look under the hood of the car? Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess just going off on the president's speech that he's going tonight, what kind of tone do you hope that he sets? Right, he's no longer campaigning. He's won that seat. He's going to be in it for 4 years. What kind of tone do you hope that he sets for the remainder of his presidency?
Well, I think to your point, I would think, his last campaign. And usually when you get off the campaign trail, the divisive, harsh rhetoric, the bully tactics, you have to govern, and then you're the president of the United States. I would hope he would act presidential, and I would hope he would deliver a message that brings the country together rather than dividing it. I know in his mind he has scores to settle, but let's leave that in the past. Let's move forward, and let's try to work together on making this a better nation than it was when we came into it. The great thing I look at is, can I hand down a better country, America, to the next generation? That's what it's all about. So I hope he takes the high road tonight and doesn't get in the gutter.